All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Sales Podcast. This is your host, Tom Alemo. They call me Tommy Tahoe. This is episode 210, and excited to be here. Pumped about this week's episode, about today's episode. Real quick, if you're new to the show, this is where we help up-level young salespeople with career advice, inspirational stories, tactical advice, an uplifting message to help you make more money, get better at your job, earn the next promotion, wherever it is that you're trying to get to. If you find any value in this podcast, in this episode, the one thing I ask is if you go to Apple, hit subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It takes a minute and it really helps me to gain my reach, to get better guests, to create better content for you all. So that's really the only ask. Without further ado, let's talk about today's guest. I am talking to Sarah Brazier, my coworker, AE, account executive at Gong, one of the most popular sales thought leaders on LinkedIn, almost 30,000 followers. And she has a super interesting career track from the arts, in teaching, theater, speech and debate, all these different things. Then getting into sales a few years ago. We talk about that path. We talk about her journey from SDR to AE, struggling in the early days as an SDR, and then even tactically, how is she building pipeline and how is she prospecting right now? You're really going to enjoy this episode. Sarah's a rock star, not only for the posts on LinkedIn where she gets thousands of likes, but in the day-to-day when she's actually selling. I can see emails where she is closing deals and is absolutely crushing it. So I really think you're going to enjoy this episode, especially if you're someone that has transitioned from another area outside of normal college graduation to being in sales. Maybe if you came from another industry or took you a while to get into sales or whatever it might be, this is going to be a great episode for you. So without further ado, let me bring you my conversation with Sarah Brazier. Let's go. All right, Sarah Brazier, welcome to the Millennial Sales Podcast. What's happening?
Not much. I'm just sitting on my couch next to my unlit fireplace. It might be February, but here in Berkeley, California, it was a high of 68, I believe. And I think it was actually warmer. And I sat outside for one of my calls, and I think I've got a sunburn. So,
is that where you are? You're out in Berkeley? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I live in Berkeley. So, are you familiar with Berkeley Hills at all?
Literally, I've only gone to Berkeley one time, and I went to a concert there, so I know nothing.
Okay. Well, where you went to the concert? Did you go to a concert at Berkeley's campus?
Yeah.
Okay, I just live like half a mile up the street from there.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. It's pretty great. Come visit. Sometimes I sit on my roof and drink wine. So you're invited.
Not a bad move. Was that a COVID decision? Because were you in the city before?
I was in the city before, and it wasn't a COVID decision. It was I don't really feel like being in the city anymore. And my partner was like, I can't live in the city anymore. And he wanted to move to Europe. And I was like,
the middle ground was Berkeley.
And I was like, well, why don't we just look at somewhere that's like feels a little more like we're in like a neighborhood and not so. I lived on Geary. I don't know if you know Geary, but it's a very busy street.
I do know.
And I was close to the college campus, so every like Tuesday or Thursday night, there'd always be like drunk college kids like yelling outside my window. There's like one time where there was a couple in a fight, and I just like lifted up the window and I was like, you guys need to shut up. And the guy yelled at me back, and I was like, no, you listen to me. It is 12 o'clock at night. I have to work in the morning now. You take your drunk girlfriend and you go home.
Oh man, I love that.
It was very, very New York of me, not very San Francisco, but they stopped talking and they left. So anyway, I was like tired of that. So we moved out to Berkeley literally 2 days before the shutdown happened. So I was moving my stuff in a rainstorm, because it always rains when I move. And my brother emailed me, and he texted me, and he was like, hey, I think you should go buy some groceries. Everything's going to shut down. And I was like, okay, cool. So like halfway through unpacking my stuff into my new little, very, very fancy, as you can see with
Yeah.
my brick wall here,
Brick
my cinder
wall.
blocks, my
You
cinder
got
blocks.
what is that picture? Is that a bull?
It's a
Is that
bison.
a
It's a
bike?
bison
I was
crossing a
gonna say
city
that,
street.
but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
My pleather couch, very, very fancy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I moved here, and that's where I've been. That's where I've been ever since, just sheltering.
Good times in Berkeley.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to get into things. There's a lot of reasons why I wanted to have you on the show that range from you have a really interesting background. You obviously crush it for anyone that is connected with you or follows you on LinkedIn, and have made quite a presence there with the way that what you write, as well as like some of the webinars and things that you join. And you also just like dominated as an SDR and are starting to dominate as an AE, just like in actual results, which truthfully, I don't think that always correlates, like the LinkedIn superstars versus the people that hit quota and make the most money and all that stuff. It doesn't always correlate. So I'm interested to get into all that. I'd love to start first with your background, like broadcasting major in school, did some work for was it like some television shows, some like news shows? Like, where was your head at in, like that was what, 8 or so years ago when you were coming out of school as a broadcasting major?
Yeah. So degrees in broadcast. My thought was I'm gonna be Terry Gross and I'm gonna work for NPR, classical, other smart stuff. And I was gonna be you instead of me on this. And I was
Yeah,
gonna be doing these really long form human interest pieces, and we were gonna get to the root of how to solve society's greatest problems.
yeah,
Um, and then I remember sitting in class, and there are two things that really turned me off to news. One was the crazy amount of work you do and the crazy little amount of dollars you get paid. And I'm not shy to like hard work. Um,
yeah,
at like when I was in college, I think the lightest semester I took was 17 credits, and I think like 18 credit, you can't go past 18 credits without having
yeah,
to pay extra money. Um, and when I was this semester, I took 19 credits. I was doing speech and debate, mock model UN, and I was also a teacher's assistant. And the speech and debate team I competed for, we traveled every weekend from September through April. So it's not like I was like, I don't want to work hard. It was more
yeah,
like, I don't want to work hard and get paid like gonna cap out at like 32K a year.
yeah, yeah,
That was one of the things that I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for that. And the more I learned about just like bias systems within reporting and the influence of, at the end of the day, news people are there to sell. You sell ads, right?
yeah,
And so that means that sometimes you can't report on the stuff that you want to report on because somebody is a sponsor or,
mm,
their ads are paying your salary,
yeah,
which didn't used to be that way in news, by the way. So anyway, those are things that turn me off. This is like very meandering. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. So then I left school, sold jeans very, very shortly at the Buckle. And while I was selling jeans at the Buckle, I got a call from my speech and debate coach, and he was like, "Hey, I got a job for you." And I was like, "Great." And he's like, "I think you should take it, and I think you should work there." And so they're going to call you like tomorrow, and the job is as good as yours. And it was at a nonprofit called the National Speech and Debate Association. They host the world's largest academic competition.
hmm
And
interesting.
they just had two people quit. They're like, "Yeah, we really need someone. So if you could just come for like 6 months, move to Des Moines." And 2 weeks later, I was living in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah. So what do you like so much about the debate world? Like obviously there's parallels to sales, but you did that in college and then you did that professionally for a little while. So like what drew you to that, and why are you presumably, I imagine, very good at it if you've been doing it that long?
Yeah, I did speech and debate all through high school, all through college. In high school, I it got me a scholarship to go compete on this team. So we had a very good speech and debate team. and then the National Speech and Debate Association. And then after that, I coached speech. And during that, I was coaching speech. So I was very deep in the speech and debate world. If there's someone in speech and debate and you tap them on the shoulder, there's a strong possibility I know them because I got so deep into the community. And the things that I like about it. So there's speech and there's debate. They're different. They're not the same. Debate sounds like debate, where it's like you prepare both sides of an argument and you walk in and someone flips a coin and you just hope that you got the argument that you feel stronger on, and then you go in and you clash, and
Yep.
it's very logical. It's super smart. I wish I'd done debate just because I think it would have made me honestly better at negotiating.
Yep.
But what I did was the speech part, and I specifically did the interpretation categories, which is where you take a piece of literature, like a play or a poem or a combination of different, creative writings, and you perform it as a character.
Yep.
And it's like a 10-minute skit, and it's competitive acting. It's very fun.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with debate. That's because speech and debate is actually called forensics. Like that's what, like if you're really in the community, and forensics is not like forensic science. It actually comes from the word forum, which it means the search for truth. So a forensic scientist is trying to figure out like what happened to this person? Why are their bones all wiggly wonk, right?
Yeah.
They're searching for the truth. Well, in forensics and speech and debate, we are searching for these ultimate truths. Like, what is the truth of the humanity under this story? What is the common thread that brings us all together? So it's very like connecting the dots, reading between the lines, things that eventually translated to developing business acumen, reading a 10K and understanding where are the things that they're not saying that you need to kind of poke at to find pain. Same with when you start a discovery call, right? It's all about trying to peel back the onion.
Yeah.
So
I had no idea that speech and debate were two different things. I thought you were just going to say, yeah, I was just like going at people head to head. Like we'd be talking about, the typical things that people debate about. And like, I was just a ruthless, negotiator, and that's how it tied into sales. But you kind of threw me off my course there. So you're doing like 10 minutes, like Hamlet or something. I don't know. Like that's just the first thing that comes to mind, something like that.
Yeah, I would perform like Second Lady by M. Kilberg-Reedy, and I'd play the wife of a politician who has an emotional breakdown while giving a speech to the League of Women Voters. Or Next to Normal, which is a Broadway musical about a couple where the wife has bipolar schizophrenia and hallucinates that their son who died as a baby is still alive. And like it's an amazing musical. It won multiple Tonys when it came out. And so then you take that and you say, okay, like here's this thing. And then you build like an argument around your performance. So you have to justify the choices that you make as an actor to argue something. So an example like Second Lady, what I was sort of dissecting is like, where is the point where a public figure's private life gets put on display, which becomes more and more interesting as like at the time, like, people just started having Facebook because I'm old. But like, especially in today's political arena where like anything that you say in private can suddenly be put on display, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. And how does the individual cope with that when they are not the wife of the politician, not the person who wants to be thrown into the public space but gets dragged into it? How can you separate those things? And so the argument is essentially that like we have to create barriers, otherwise you get the lady like in Second Lady, she has a huge breakdown. Great.
I feel like those types of stories help you to understand human nature. Like I heard someone say recently, like there's only so many patterns that humans have, right? Like there's only so many things and so many thoughts and so many ways that people react in certain situations. So I've found that, reading something like, I haven't read what you're referencing, but just reading like really old history or things that are totally unrelated to sales or business, like just gives you a better feel for humans and like how they react in certain situations, and just, helps you take sales aside, just helps you personally.
Yeah, but the thing about theater is that um, one of the acting coaches that I had worked with at some point, or maybe I read it in a book. It essentially said that every human emotion that you could possibly experience, you will by the time you're 18. Like you're just going to have felt it. Now the circumstances are different. There's a myriad of things that I will never experience. Like sitting in a point of privilege, living in my little Berkeley hut, selling SaaS software. But I can empathize with every feeling that everyone has felt frustrated and knows what frustration feels like. Everybody
Yeah.
has felt grief and knows what that feels like. And we've all felt different nuances and colors. And so as an actor, you go in and you don't tap into to the memory of it. You tap into the physical memory. I mean, you can't go back and like think about something really terrible that happened to you and then try to like think about that while you're trying to act. But that's like acting theory. Anyway,
Yeah.
you can use that to empathize with these different emotional states. And when you can put yourself in that psychological space of grief or anger or joy or delight or anticipation, you can then start seeing things and thinking about the different paths that are in front of you, the logical choices but the steps that people take as they are in an emotional state of being. Because everyone says that, buying
Yeah.
is emotional. Like the act of sales is eliciting an emotion and getting people to emotionally trust you, buy in, and make a choice, and then justify it logically later on.
Yeah. So there's the parallel.
There's a parallel. There's so many parallels.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. I know that after doing some of the speech and debate, I think you were a teacher for a few years, maybe in a few different capacities. And then like there was the hard shift from that to working at, I think, Optimizely, where you were doing, I don't even know exactly what the exact role was, but it wasn't salesperson, it wasn't BDR. So like, tell me that story. Like where's that hard turn? I know that you mentioned maybe it was financial, similar to like the broadcast world. But like, then why sales? Like, how did that happen?
Okay. So I told you I'm working at the National Speech and Debate Association. This is meandering. Everyone buckle up. So I'm working at the
I
National.
love meandering. You might not think that the people want to hear meandering, but that's all people care about nowadays. So just meander away.
Climb in my minivan. We're going on a Sunday drive.
Yep, and we're just hitting green lights all the way through.
All the way through. Well, we're in the countryside. We're in Amish country right now.
Yeah, okay, great.
I'm from Ohio. We don't even have stop signs out there. We do, but they're few and far between, every couple miles.
I've driven through Ohio. It's brutal.
Depending on where you drive, Amish country is quite beautiful.
Yeah. I just mean it's like flat and
on
a long road trip, it's like kind of like you could fall asleep at the wheel.
It's not like driving through, I don't know, Canyonland.
Yeah. Yeah, not like that.
Not like that. So I'm working at the National Speech and Debate Association, and my boss at the time is this guy named Scott Leese. He's the executive director. Scott's got a brother-in-law.
Wait, Scott Leese?
Not Scott Leese. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I'm just thinking. I've just talked about Scott Leese so recently. No, his name's Scott Wunn. WUNN.
Oh.
Wow, that was a moment.
That would have been wild. Okay, go on.
No, I wish. That would be cool. It's like, actually, I've been talking to Scott. It was Scott Leese the whole time. No, we're gonna got one. And anyway, Scott's got a brother-in-law who worked for Baxter, who still works at Baxter, the medical company, and he's like a territory manager for their sales team. And their sales organization apparently was like the best of all of Baxter's sales orgs, and so they've been invited to speak. And they have this tradition of presenting like a really funny video at the beginning of all their speeches, because they're like, like year over year, they're just really super great. And since I've got my journalism degree, I know how to edit video. So Scott's like, Brazier, because that's how he talks. He's like, Brazier, I want to put some money in your pocket. I'm like, oh, great. can you edit this video for my brother-in-law? And I'm like, sure, whatever. So I edit the video, and anyway, I make friends with the guys because they're salespeople, and this is like their presentation. So I went through so many drafts of re-editing this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, like, it's good to go. We ship it, but I made friends with the guys. So the next year, they flew me out to. I was living in Texas teaching, and they flew me out to come make the video for the next year. And the whole time they're like, Sarah, you really should think about doing sales. You would really excel. And like, I know you like teaching, but you would make so much more money. You should just think about doing sales. And I was like, okay, I'll put that in my back pocket. So between speech and debate, I moved to teaching, where I taught speech and debate and drama at a middle school. And like, I finished that up, and I just got like, I was just exhausted. I was so exhausted, and I wasn't making any money. And I thought, if I'm going to be this tired and this poor, I should do something that I really, really love. I should go act. And my brother lived in San Francisco. So I moved out to the Bay Area and slept on his futon and was acting and doing shows and trying to get my equity card. But obviously you gotta still pay for like living and food and all that good stuff. Eventually I like
Yep.
moved in with some friends, but um, theater, I could do a show where I worked, 20 or 30 hours a week for 2 months on a show, and I'd make $500 for the whole show. With like, which is
Jesus.
like, if you get into like sourcing enterprise deals as as an SDR, that's like one deal source. Like that's like a cold call.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, right? More than that. But so anyway, I was doing that, and I was coaching speech and debate still at an after school program in southern, like south of San Francisco, and working as a barista. And I thought, oh man, like coaching speech is paying me money, but it's taking away from my ability to go audition. I should get a job. I should get like jobs that are really close to each other. So I temp worked at Optimizely as a front desk girl, as an office
Mm.
administrator. So like if you forgot your badge, I'd give you a temporary badge, and I would, like staple stuff together. And I mean, the whole time I was just like hunting for like memorizing lines and reading books and just like trying to like get ready for my next audition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also working in the morning as a barista before I'd go into the office. So I'd wake up around like 4 a.m. and I'd get ready and go make my coffee, go make the coffee for all the people. I didn't drink coffee that whole time because everything smelled like coffee. I was just drunk coffee too much.
Yeah.
But this is the gesture you make when you make the coffee.
Right.
But
Right.
you do that, and then I'd
Was it
have
Starbucks or where? What was it? A fancy like hipster spot or where
Phil.
was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Shout
so
out
it's
to
like
Phil's.
medium.
Yeah, I
Medium
like Phil's.
fancy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like Phil's. I liked Phil's. I liked Phil's is why I started working there. I don't like Phil's anymore. I had too much Phil's.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're up at 4.
up at
You're
4. I would
not
jog,
consuming coffee, just creating it.
not consuming coffee, just creating it. I would run to the BART station, get there, set up shop, make coffee with a couple other, almost all the baristas were women, um, until like 10:30, and then I'd head over to Optimizely. I'd use their shower because they had one, because I just would reek of coffee. I'd just be the smelliest. Like
Mm.
I was so self-conscious about the fact that my hair smelled like coffee. And then I worked the front desk until 5 o'clock. And then I would clock out. I would pick some of their cheese from their fridge, and I would hop on BART, head back to my house. If I had time, I would go on a jog. Usually I didn't. I would use my lunch break. I had a whole 30 minutes lunch break while I was the front desk person. So I'd use that to work out in their yoga room because they had one. Our startup's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cheese and yoga rooms
Yeah.
and
So
showers.
it's showers. Yeah, it was great. So I could like get all those things done, but I'd like go back to my house, get in my car, and then I'd sit in traffic because I would be driving out to Berkeley to go work on a show. And then I'd rehearse until like 10:30 at night. And then I'd drive back and do it all again the next morning. And um, some days I didn't make coffee. Like some mornings I didn't, which was great. But I rehearsed on weekends. So I never had a day off. And I did that, and I just got really tired, and I started to get really frustrated because I couldn't be in the shows that I wanted to do, and I didn't have my equity card, so I couldn't get insurance through that. I was like, I had to do the office job that I was doing. I did because I could get insurance through it, and because I worked part time at the coffee shop, it wasn't enough to have insurance. So it was like really just like trying to like find these like basic survival things to keep
Hmm.
money in my pocket, and I still made like, you know, I think I filed like $13,000 on my taxes or something. It's like no money,
Yeah.
no money, no savings. And I thought, this is like really stupid. This is so dumb. I should just get a real job. And that is what led me to sales. It was just pure desperation. And I started talking to people at Optimizely, and I talked to people in marketing. I talked to people in sales enablement. And a guy named Jim Jones gave me To Sell is Human, which I read. And I said, yeah, I can do this. And then he introduced me to a couple SDR organizations that were hiring, and that got me my first job. And I was really bad at it in my first job, but eventually I made my way to Gong, and I got a lot better with some really great training from Tanner Robinson and like Adam Ochart and Eric Lindros. And yeah, that was the journey. It was just like, I'm gonna go like do jobs that make no money and be a servant and try to create art. And eventually like that lifestyle of like constant sacrifice without feeling like I was getting rewarded back, or like being, being able to like really like build a life on top of it. It just like wore me down to the point where I was like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
When I found sales and I found that I could be good at it and that it could be really fun and that it would play on the strengths that I had of communication and empathy and psychology and problem solving and thinking about things creatively. And I could, I could put money into my savings account,
Which is good.
which is great. I was like, yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. That's
So what you mentioned, like the first role maybe didn't go so great. And most salespeople's like most when you start your sales career, most people I've talked to, same with me, like the first 6 to 12 months are usually pretty brutal. And a lot of people drop out, I think, short of that first year. So I'm curious, like if you were in that spot, it looked like it was maybe, I don't know, 9-ish months at that first spot, and then you went to Gong and maybe it took some time to get rolling. Like what was the thing or things that you tweaked? Like what was that turning point for you, if you can recall anything, if it was a lesson or just a something that you started doing differently, or a mindset shift, or maybe you just like were working your ass off and things started to finally work for you? Like do you recall?
I think it was a couple things. So there, yeah, the number one thing was there was a mindset set shift. That's like the first thing that happened. Is I was still trying to do shows while I was there. I'd go to rehearsal in the evening. Um, so I'd finish my work, clock out for the day, and go practice. And I said, I'm just not going to be in a play for one whole year. I will not do a show. I kind of did a show, but I
Mhm.
wasn't acting in it. I was producing it. So
There you go, loophole.
yeah, it was a loophole. It was just like the hours, the time, the commitment.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, and I was just like, I'm just going to master this job, and if I cannot master this, then I know I'm not cut out for sales. So that was the first thing. It's just the mindset of like, I can and I will,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to get distracted. And I made sure that in my first 3 months that I was overproducing pipeline so that I would set myself up for success.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. The second thing was, um, I think, around the way that Gong had structured mentorship in the SDR org at the time. There was this massive culture of, hey, this account's in your name and I have a lead, let me give it to you. Be like, wow, like you just like gave me a meeting. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What? Like you
That's crazy.
wow. And it was great. Like that's the culture of Gong. It's just like we're gonna win as a team. Like no one should miss quota. Um and so that leadership really came down from the top with Tanner, who would get on the phone. Like if I messed up a cold call, he'd call back the VP of sales and say, "Hey, like, how'd my SDR do? Give me some feedback." Or if someone no-showed, he'd call the no-shows and be like, "Hey, like, where did we? I'm the SDR leader here. Like, I know Sarah booked a meeting with you, and I just wanted to know like where we fell off. That you didn't that it wasn't worth your time to actually come to the meeting, kind of thing."
I
He'd say
love
it
that
prettier
move.
than that.
Did he book meetings on that on that callback move, or the first thing that you mentioned? Like
Yeah,
you messed up a cold call, or someone on the team did?
yeah, he could do that. Yeah, he would do that. Or he'd just like tell me like, "Go call them back,
Get
or
feedback.
call them
Yeah.
back and say this thing."
Yeah.
But whether it worked or didn't work, it built a culture of fearlessness on the phones,
Mm.
and of just like we were very much allowed to fail. And Tanner would do, I mean, we had call reviews religiously, and he would handpick these calls, and he would sit down and we would listen to each other's calls, and he'd hit pause and he'd say like, "Sarah, how would you respond to that objection? You know, Tom,
Yeah.
how would you handle this? Where should we go from here?" And he'd do that not only with SDR calls, but he would have us start listening to account executive calls and do the same thing. So he's teaching us how to run discovery for when we became AEs. So it's just like this,
Yeah.
like, massive investment in having us feel like, I mean, I felt like I was learning. I was learning. Whereas before I just felt completely lost. I didn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
And it was this is like this cultural like place. And that's like the third thing. It was just this commitment to enabling your reps to be successful. And I mean, everybody, it was like it was teamwork. I sat down with every single person that was one of my teammates, and they all led a separate session of my development. And it it wasn't overwhelming. It was super helpful. It was very tactical. It wasn't like, let's sit in onboarding for 8 hours and good luck after. It
Yeah.
was like, let's put this into practice. And the first, like just getting a cold call script, like not a script, but like, here's the
Yeah.
formula. No one explained the formula to me.
Yeah.
I like begged people for the formula. I would go, I like would, my last job, I literally pulled different people into a room and I was like, can you just explain to me how you go from high to now they're on the calendar with the account executive?
Yeah.
Like I could not figure that out for the life of me. And I would get on the phone with people. I could talk to you for 20 minutes, but you still wouldn't take the meeting at the end of the call. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I do that?
It's really hard. It's so hard. It's damn near impossible without a roadmap from a leader, from a peer, a friend, whoever. Like to just like be, given a territory and say, book, X amount of meetings per month or per week, this much pipeline. Like I just don't see that ever working. Like every once in a while, you might, someone might be able to just kind of bang through the phones and try to figure it out on the fly, but you need that level of coaching.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you wrote this week really resonated with me. It's when we're talking right now, it's SDR Appreciation Week. I guess I don't know who came up with that, but this is the only week that you're allowed to appreciate the SDR. But your
It's
point
great.
was, yeah, but your point was, don't just like appreciate the SDR, like give them the training they need, give them the enablement, give them the coaching, give them a career path, and all the other things that, an SDR needs, a young salesperson needs in their career to, feel like they have something working for them and to be motivated to continue to get better. And I
Yeah.
love that message.
I mean, um, I think that the SDR leadership and management is, um, it's one of like the most overlooked pieces
Yeah.
of the sales org. Sales gets all the attention. Um, and SDRs, like right now, SDRs are like having this really great shining moment. It's like on my LinkedIn, like everyone's like, "Yay, SDRs," even before SDR Appreciation Week. But
Yeah.
the um, the thing that I think people aren't talking about is the tactical skills that SDRs need to be successful and how a manager can implement and teach those things. Because I talk to SDRs all the time and they frequently have unattainable quotas. They frequently have managers who just up their KPIs, but they don't give them the roadmap for the cold call. They don't sit down with them and read a collection of the emails that they sent this week and critique them. They don't tell them, here are the important parts of a earnings call that you should look at, or how do you optimize LinkedIn in order to prospect. And the more I think about it, the more frustrated I become, because I think one of the things that eventually allowed me to be successful was, like, first I got this great training from Tanner, who's just great. Like, Tanner's great.
Yeah.
Tanner's amazing. Tanner should be paid millions of dollars because he's so great.
Shout
I,
out to Tana.
I can't wait till Tanner is the CRO of a business or the CEO of a business, and I can go just be like, hey man, can I work for you? He's just fantastic. But not everybody is fantastic like Tanner. And what ended up happening with Tanner is he was just there in interim. Like, we were in the process of hiring on a true SDR leader, and he just happened to be the top performer who also had amazing leadership qualities.
Yeah.
But what I think ends up happening is, with most SDR leaders, it's like, you're 22 or 23, you hit quota consistently for a year, and you have the choice to either go be an account executive or go be an SDR leader. An account executive feels scary because there's this even bigger number over your head. There's a whole sales cycle and motion that you have to learn, and you're still an individual contributor. But then the SDR leadership role, like that's got some like juicy, a nice fat salary that comes with it. You already know how to do the job, plus you get to be a people leader. And so you go make that choice and you go do it, and you don't realize, oh my gosh, there's so much process and there's so much enablement that maybe just like happened. You got, but now you have to teach everybody else. And so you get people who shouldn't be in leadership teaching the hardest part of the sales cycle to people who are in their first job learning the hardest part of the sales cycle.
Yeah.
And that's why you have these massive SDR organizations where 90% of the team is under 50% of plan, and turnover is incredibly high, and you as the CRO of the company needs 5x coverage for whatever he's trying to hit ARR wise, and if he's part of a startup, it's triple, double, double. So you need to have a ton of stuff in pipe, and it's just like the whole system seems a little wonky wonk to me.
Big time wonky wonk.
And I think I got lucky because I just happened to do a bunch of other jobs.
Yeah.
And to work for good people, and to work for bad people, and to work for in-between people, and to kind of sniff out the BS early on. And I also totally empathize with what Gong is trying to solve, because we help salespeople get better at their jobs. We help give them the tools that they need to be successful. And I can do a good job of imagining what it must be like to be a sales leader in that situation, because I was for sure a rep in that situation, in SDR, where it was like, what's going on? I don't know. Can I just listen to a recording of someone booking a meeting? I'm going through all these Twilio calls in SalesLoft, and like, I cannot find one that's not a dial tone and a voicemail.
Yeah, I hear you. And I guess, shout out to Gong with that too. But I'm curious, like, one of my favorite sections that I, randomly created for this podcast, I call the selfish section, right? So this is just a question that I want to know, because it's going to help me, and all the other listeners can go not listen for a few minutes. I'm curious, like, you were so successful as an SDR, and I'm sure that you're still prospecting, right now as an AE too, but like, in my opinion, I read something recently that, like, sales tactics change kind of like they're like fashion, and I'm not a fashionista by any means. Anyone can say that, but like, in the fact that they change often, and what worked a couple of years ago might not work this year. And so I think that's true to an extent, although the psychology is consistent. So I'm curious, like, tactically, I'm trying to book meetings, Sarah. Let's just put it on the table. Like, I want to get meetings. I want to create pipeline. Like, what's one or two things that you're doing right now that is actually booking that for you?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Tactically, how do I book meetings right now? So step one, go into my account list. The way that Gong works is SMB, small business or commercial account executives get about 900 accounts. And I went through all 900 of them and I tiered them. Tier 1, 2, 3, and unqualified. And once I had my tier 1s, I dropped them into Sales Navigator and I just looked for the right titles. And all of those people, so VP of sales, you go into my tier 1 account, VP of sales list. You can do all of that on Sales Nav. And it's like a process. I'm doing it. It takes time. It's not like I'm spending hours on, like, there's other stuff that I'm doing. So I do that. And while I'm looking at these accounts, I'm also looking at who's in my name that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, like someone from the company I'm connected with. That's low hanging fruit. And I'm looking for who almost bought but didn't. Those are like good ones. And I go back through and I look in Gong. You can do it in Salesforce, so if you don't have a really great solution. But I just look at, like, what was the communication like? Why didn't they buy? Is it because they bought a competitor? Is it because we were too expensive? It was because timing didn't work out? Is it because someone, just got busy? Like, what was the reason? And then why were they evaluating in the first place? And that's the outreach. It's like, hey, Tom, like, you evaluated our solution about 6 months ago because you had X, Y, and Z problem. Is that still an issue for you? Yes or no? Is it time to pick up the conversation? Great, let's do it. Or no, let's not. Let me objection handle that. With people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I go, hey, Tom, I just got our new book of accounts. And guess what? You're in it. I noticed that you and I are connected on LinkedIn. Totally fine if you don't want to have a conversation about this. You could say, you go, gross, go away, Sarah. But I'm curious, would you be willing to give me just a few minutes to pick your brain to see if it's worth like prospecting? Like if it's
Is
worth
that
a
on
greater
LinkedIn or an
conversation.
email? Sorry to
That's on
cut you off.
LinkedIn.
That's on
I
LinkedIn.
DM you on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And then that's for people who are like engaging, like who follow Gong on LinkedIn. I look at who follows my company, people who are downloading white pages. And then there's some people that I just try to like strike up a conversation with. Like, let's try to talk. I want to try to talk to you.
Yeah.
Try to get to know you. And I just try to do a lot of rapport building on LinkedIn. Just I don't like pitching people. So it's different if someone follows your company, because then you can say, hey, like, I know you've dabbled in our content. We have to be providing value to you in some way. You can tell me if you just like reading our content or if you think there's something bigger here. But if someone's not doing that and it's a different approach, it's like walking up to somebody at a happy hour or a bar or something and just like trying to strike up a conversation. So you can start with like, hi, how are you? Although how are you is like the most boring starting line ever. But just like try to strike up a conversation and get to know them. And then like eventually I'll pivot to work if it makes sense. And then eventually I'll pivot to like the ask, which is, hey, I don't know if you're familiar with us at all, and I don't even know if this is relevant to you, but I've noticed X, Y, and Z things about your company, and I thought it might make sense to have a conversation. But if it doesn't, just tell me no, and I won't bring it up ever again. And we can go back to talking about whatever it is that we had been rapport building about before. And that works really well because people like know I'm a real human being. They've gotten to know me. We've made each other laugh, and the defense mechanism of, oh, you're going to try to take my money goes down right
Drops
away.
that down. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like at the end of the day, like I'm not trying to, the first thing I'm trying to do is just get on a qualification call and see if really there is a bigger conversation at hand. I'm not trying to close a sale right then and there. So that's how I go about prospecting on LinkedIn. At the same time, simultaneously, like I could be chatting with you on LinkedIn, but I've also dropped you into a sequence in outreach.
Yeah.
So I'm sending you like a more formal like business email that's very, very brief and to the point. It's like, hey, Tom, I noticed X, Y, and Z thing about your company. We work with sales leaders who experience X, Y, and Z pain. Would you be open to learning about how you can solve ABC issue? And that's, the email that I'm sending out with a bunch of other touches and follow-ups. And then I do a lot of cold calls. And not a lot. I do enough cold calls that I'm like if I have a report of MQLs of like marketing qualified leads that I check every day. And before I drop them into a, hey, you downloaded content, are you interested in buying our softwares kind of sequence, I just call
Yeah.
them and I say something like, hey, Tom, I noticed that you've been dabbling in Gong's content and you popped up on my radar, but more importantly, I saw that your company has grown 300% according to LinkedIn in the past 6 months. I'm just curious if you've ever considered exploring Gong outside of our content. And then you'll either say yes or no. And then I'll say like, well, does it make sense for me to give you the high level pitch? And then I'll do my really great pitch. And then, you know, we'll just chat.
See where it goes from there.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love the tactical piece. Before, I know we're getting close on time. I want to talk for 1 minute about LinkedIn.
1 minute.
1 minute, maybe 3 minutes.
Maybe.
So the way that you write is very unique on LinkedIn, and the way that you talk in this conversation is unique. Like you're fun, like you're saying like wonky wonk, like all these different things, and you write the way that you talk. I would say, right? Like you write like a human. You don't necessarily write like, I don't know, just like this kind of stuck up, like, I don't know, just like robot business person that you
I
see
am
online
smart.
a lot.
Listen to how smart I am. I am smart
Yeah.
on this LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Smart,
Like,
smart,
so
smart.
tell, yeah, like, tell me why you do it so uniquely. Like why, there's obviously a conscious decision. It obviously works. It feels very real, but like, just tell me a little bit about why you do it that way versus the way that 99% of people probably put things out.
I guess because I'm just like a weirdo.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I mean, I love things that make me laugh. And usually when I'm writing one of my posts, I'm making myself chuckle. I just
Yeah,
think the world of sales is not life or death. Nobody ever died because someone didn't sign your contract this month, probably.
probably not.
Maybe. There's maybe like a small midget. There's always a chance.
Right. Yeah.
Like, like I'm not a doctor, not a nurse. I'm not any of those things. And even if I was, I'd probably still make jokes because sales is it's a challenging thing to be in that it's very emotionally draining. Your highs are high and your lows are low and everything in between is a grind.
Yeah.
Um and if I just think like if I took every down if every disappointing moment in my life seriously, then I'd probably be laying on this couch instead of sitting on it. But
Yeah.
if I can make fun of the things that are funny, and if I can express something in a way that is interesting, then it'll be fun. I don't know. When I was a middle school teacher, it's probably like my middle school teacher vibes, but
Yeah.
we used to write we used to write plays as a class, and it was just so much fun, like getting creative with the dialogue and writing things that feel absurd and delightful and whimsical and then getting to read that out loud. It's just like a really fun act of creativity. And yeah, I do it on LinkedIn and then I read my posts out loud to my boyfriend and I'm like, isn't that funny?
Does he find it funny?
Yeah, most of the time. Sometimes he's like, that's not your best. That one I didn't think
Bring
that
that
one
back
was
to the
funny.
drawing board.
They're like, all right, I'll reel it in. I mean, you should see my first drafts because often they're like too many words. And sometimes like the post that I made about the SDR stuff, I mean, there were way more jokes and like little jabby jabs at companies that don't do a good job of building structure before they scale an SDR
Yeah.
organization. And man, I was just cracking myself up. Then I had to delete a bunch of it. I wish I saved a copy, but yeah, like I just don't the thing is I'm not an expert, so I shouldn't write like I'm an expert. I should write like I'm in the field selling and just trying to enjoy it because that's what I'm actually trying to do. And
I love
if I can't poke fun at my job or myself or just delight in creating words that aren't real words, then what's the point?
it. Then what's life? I wanted to, in the spirit of drama and theater, wanted to finish actually reading one of your posts in a dramatic reading that
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if I've done in my 3.5 years of podcasting, but here we go. This is from about 1 year ago, LinkedIn tells me. I'm an SDR. I sell to sales leaders. The other day, I called the VP of sales. He was very, very disappointed in me for bothering people in Q4. Then he hung up on me. I had to laugh a little. I wonder what he's telling his reps as his revenue numbers hang over his head. Don't call people in Q4? Nah. And so I keep dialing. Over 10,000 likes on that bad boy. That's awesome. That's all I got. I just love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Nah.
Nah.
Yeah. That's the post that went viral that made me who I am on LinkedIn.
Oof. That's where it all started.
That's where it all started. It's true. It's a true story. It happened 2 days before I wrote that post. I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, that guy. And I was slacking in AE about it, and I just thought, like, that's so dumb. I just kept thinking,
Yeah.
that's so dumb. I'm just gonna write it on LinkedIn. And then, like, I walked out the door and looked at my phone a couple hours later, and it was just like, you have 7,000 or whatever. It was just like crazy. It was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, all of these notifications. Got a lot of job offers out of that one.
That's wild. I love that. I love that. Well, I know we're about our backs are against the wall in time. I appreciate you being generous with your time, with your stories, with your humor. Any last words for the listeners out there? And then obviously let us know where the best place is to catch up with you, if it's LinkedIn or anywhere else. I imagine it's probably LinkedIn though.
It's LinkedIn. I technically have access to Clubhouse, and I've looked at it twice. I'm gonna be on a Clubhouse thing though on March 23rd. So if people
Oh,
want to go, if you're listening to this pre-March 23rd, 2021, that's where I'll be there with some
yep.
other people. We're talking about 4 things I wish my manager had taught me.
Mm.
Yeah, so LinkedIn. That's where I'll be. And then I guess, like, last thought for the listeners. Gosh,
Make it a good one.
make it a good one. Yeah. When in doubt, hit the phones. That's it. That's it. When in doubt, hit the phones. Pipeline is a cure-all.
I love it. I love it. Great way to end. I appreciate the time, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Happy March. Thank you for listening to that episode while you're walking the dog or doing your laundry or prospecting, whatever you're up to. Please head over to Apple, leave a review, 5-star review. Helps me grow the show. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Tom Malemo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Tom McTahoe. Peace.